Men and women have always sought, by one means or another, to be together rather than apart. At first they were together by the simple expedient of being unicellular, and there was no conflict. Later the cells separated, or began living apart, for reasons which are not clear even today, although there is considerable talk. Almost immediately the two halves of the original cell began experiencing a desire to unite again, usually with a half of some other cell. This urge has survived down to our time. Its commonest manifestations are marriage, divorce, neurosis, and a little less frequently gunfire. When society decided it would have to set up laws to govern these polymorphous manifestations of a once simple urge which had got out of hand, it did so without a very clear notion of sex as we know it today. It did not realize that direction of the love urge, used outside forces of law and order, must be subversive to the complete flowering of the individual. And is there anything in life more wonderful than a completely flowered individual, man or woman? Yet under all the weight of social regulation, the ancient desire to unite and to separate and to unite again, usually with someone else, has survived, for the simple reason that it is stronger than man-made law, and because cells, as now constituted, are more astute than the police. They have to be. Thus we find men and women being consistently together, even against the rigorous dictates of a prescribed behaviorism, or whose institutional coldness, the warmth of their emotional natures, is irrevocably opposed, and so on. As far as I can make out, the authors of this remarkable book subscribe to the modern ideal of freedom in sex, but do not believe that marriage has yet been proved a failure in every case, nor that sex can profitably be examined entirely apart from that old institution. In this viewpoint the authors and myself are at one, which is probably the reason I was asked to write an introduction. Marriage as an instrument is a well-nigh perfect thing. The trouble is that it cannot be successfully applied to the present-day emotional relationships of men and women. It could much more easily be applied to something else, possibly professional tennis. As they now stand, marriage and sex militate against each other. If marriage is to be retained, it must be perfected to meet the new demands and intricacies of sex. There is doubtless a discoverable plane on which marriage and sex, the institutional and the emotional, could meet, and as well should say, become friends. Not only marriage, however, but sex as well, would have to make certain concessions, tempered by this balanced viewpoint. One must find it, then, logically impossible to pose only the question, what is wrong with marriage? It becomes necessary also to pose the question, what is wrong with sex? For it is plausible to assume that everything may be so radically wrong with a well-nigh perfect institutional device that it might be well for society to abandon it. One must in all fairness entertain the suspicion that something may be so wrong with a well-nigh perfect emotional relationship that it might be well for society to abandon it too. People have never been satisfied with marriage. If the contracting parties are satisfied with it, someone else isn't. How often one hears the expression, "I don't know what she sees in him." As a matter of fact, however, we hear that expression less frequently today than we used to, because psychology has enabled us to know what she does see in him. There is, however, still considerable doubt as to what he sees in her. Some authorities claim because she is too complicated and mysterious for him.